You'll take all my 14 inches or I'll send you back home, the ruthless CEO warned his young wife. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. It was a cold night in the city, and the neon lights of downtown Los Angeles flickered like distant stars, casting long shadows across the empty streets. Inside a high-rise penthouse overlooking the skyline, the room was quiet except for the low hum of the city below. Michael Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises, stood by the window, his mind heavy with thoughts of his new marriage. At 42, Michael had everything he could ever want: wealth, power, respect, but something was missing. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. He had married Amanda, a young woman in her early 20s, not because he loved her, but because she was the key to securing his family's legacy. A legacy that he had spent his entire life building, and which he feared would crumble without the right alliances. Amanda was beautiful, with striking green eyes and an effortless grace, but there was one thing that she didn't know about her new husband: he was ruthless. He had built his empire with sheer will and determination, never letting anything stand in his way. And now, as they stood together in their luxurious penthouse, the foundations of their marriage were being tested in ways neither of them expected. Michael turned away from the window, his eyes scanning the room for his new wife. He had been careful to make sure she understood the terms of their arrangement, but there was still a part of him that felt unsure. He had set the rules, laid down the expectations, but this was real life, and Amanda was starting to show cracks in the facade of their perfect partnership. He could see it in the way she fidgeted when he spoke to her, how she hesitated before answering him, as if waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Amanda, Michael's voice broke through the silence, cold and commanding. She looked up from the sofa where she had been sitting, nervously twisting her fingers. "You know what I expect from you," he said, his voice even, but the weight of his words hung in the air like a cloud. She nodded slowly, her lips pressing together in a tight line. Michael's eyes softened, but only for a moment. "But I'll be honest with you," he continued, stepping closer. "I'm not here to play games. This is a business arrangement. You are here to help me secure my future." Amanda swallowed hard, trying to find the right words, but Michael didn't give her a chance to speak. "I didn't marry you because I wanted a wife," he said, his eyes piercing hers. "I married you because you're a means to an end. And I expect you to act like it." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. She had known what she was getting into when she agreed to this marriage, but hearing it spoken so plainly, so coldly, made her stomach turn. She had hoped that somewhere along the way, things would change, that maybe Michael would see her as more than just a pawn in his game. But now, standing in front of him, she realized that wasn't going to happen. She wasn't even sure if she could handle this anymore. But before she could voice her thoughts, Michael took a step closer, his expression softening just a little. "I know this isn't what you expected, but you're in this now. You agreed to it. And I'm not going to let you back out." Amanda felt a pang in her chest. She wanted to run. To leave. But she couldn't. Not now. Not when everything she had ever wanted was within her grasp. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Michael studied her for a moment before speaking again, his tone still firm but somehow more gentle. "You'll take all of me, Amanda. Or I'll send you back where you came from. I won't hesitate." She didn't know how to respond. The words felt like a dagger in her heart, but she knew he meant them. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real life. And in real life, people didn't always get what they wanted. They made sacrifices. And Amanda knew, in that moment, that she was just beginning to understand the true cost of this marriage. Would she go along with the deal? Or would she find a way to escape the chains that had been placed around her? Only time would tell. But for now, all she could do was stand there, silently, and take it all in. The future was uncertain, and Amanda had no idea what the next chapter would hold. But one thing was for sure, she was in for a wild ride. Would she survive it? Or would the man who married her for convenience break her spirit? Only time would tell. The days that followed were tense, each one seeming to stretch longer than the last. Amanda spent her mornings in the penthouse, looking out over the city from the large windows, trying to ignore the pit that had formed in her stomach. She had known what she was getting into, but the reality of it was far harder than she had imagined. Michael, on the other hand, seemed unaffected by the weight of their agreement. He continued to work tirelessly, meeting clients, making deals, and running his empire, never once acknowledging the strain that was beginning to grow between them. Amanda didn't know what she had expected, but it wasn't this cold, calculated silence. She had thought that maybe, just maybe, as time went on, they would find something more in their marriage, something real. But every time she looked into Michael's eyes, all she saw was a man who had already made up his mind. He wasn't interested in anything beyond the contract they had signed. One evening, as Amanda sat at the grand dining table, picking at her food, Michael entered the room, his face expressionless, his phone pressed to his ear. He muttered something to the person on the other end before ending the call and turning to her. "I'm hosting a business event at the house this weekend," he said, his tone casual, but there was an edge to it that she couldn't ignore. "You'll need to be on your best behavior." Amanda raised an eyebrow, her stomach tightening. "Of course," she replied, forcing a smile. "But don't you think it's a little too soon?" Michael didn't seem to hear the hesitation in her voice. "I don't care what you think, Amanda. This is part of the deal. And you'll be there." The words were blunt. Final. There was no room for negotiation. Amanda had learned that by now. She nodded, though a part of her was screaming to speak up, to ask for something, anything, that would show him that she wasn't just a pawn in his game. But she didn't. Instead, she sat there in silence, letting the weight of his words sink in. As the weekend approached, Amanda felt a sense of dread settle over her. The gala was a big event for Michael, one that would be filled with high-profile clients and potential business partners. She had no idea how to navigate the world she was now a part of. She wasn't used to the polished, cutthroat world of CEOs and executives. All she knew was the quiet, mundane life she had left behind. She tried on dress after dress, looking at herself in the mirror, but none of them felt right. Nothing seemed to fit who she was now, nothing seemed to fit the role Michael had cast her in. When the night of the event finally arrived, Amanda stood in front of the full-length mirror, adjusting her earrings, trying to calm the nerves that were threatening to take over. She had chosen a simple black gown, elegant but understated. It was the kind of dress she would never have picked for herself, but it was exactly what Michael would expect. She took a deep breath and walked out to find Michael, who was already waiting by the door, dressed in a sharp tuxedo. "You look acceptable," he said, his eyes scanning her from head to toe. Amanda felt a pang in her chest, but she didn't let it show. She simply nodded and followed him out the door. The event was exactly what Amanda had expected, a sea of perfectly dressed men and women, each one more powerful and intimidating than the last. As they walked through the crowd, Michael greeted people with a casual smile, his demeanor cold but controlled. Amanda, on the other hand, felt out of place. She tried to blend in, smiling politely when people spoke to her, but all she could think about was how little she belonged here. She wasn't like these people. She wasn't used to the glittering world of wealth and status. But as the night wore on, something strange began to happen. Amanda found herself standing next to a woman who was dressed in a stunning silver gown, her hair swept up in an elegant bun. The woman smiled at her, her eyes warm and inviting. "You're Michael's wife, aren't you?" she asked. Amanda nodded, unsure of what to say next. "He's a brilliant man," the woman continued. "But you seem different. You don't belong in his world." Amanda blinked, caught off guard by the woman's bluntness. "I'm just here for the event," she replied, her voice soft. "I didn't expect to be a part of his world." The woman laughed softly, her smile genuine. But you are. And that's what makes you so intriguing. Amanda felt a strange warmth spread through her chest at the woman's words. It was the first time that night that someone had spoken to her like she wasn't just a shadow of Michael. As the conversation continued, Amanda felt herself slowly relaxing, the weight of the evening lifting just a little. She hadn't expected to find a moment of peace in the chaos of the night, but there it was. In the midst of the pretentious glamour, someone had finally seen her, not as Michael's wife, but as herself. As the evening drew to a close, Michael and Amanda walked out of the event, the night air cool against their skin. Amanda felt a shift inside her, a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be the cold, empty figure that Michael had made her out to be. Maybe she could find a way to exist in his world, on her own terms. But as she glanced at Michael, she saw that familiar, cold look in his eyes. He wasn't interested in what had just happened. He wasn't interested in her, in the way she had begun to open up. And that made her wonder, was this really worth it? Was this marriage truly a means to an end, or had she been wrong all along? The days after the gala were a blur for Amanda. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had with the woman at the event, and it lingered in her mind more than she wanted it to. It was strange how a few simple words could shake the foundation of her world, especially when she had expected nothing but the cold, calculated distance from Michael. He seemed unaffected by the night. His routine remained unchanged, long hours at work, meetings with high-profile clients, and the occasional brief interaction with her when necessary. But now, something had shifted inside Amanda. For the first time since their marriage, she began to wonder if there was a possibility for more than just a transactional relationship between them. She could see glimpses of a man underneath the CEO persona, the one who was determined, focused, and relentless in his pursuit of success. But what did that man truly want from her? Was it all a game to him, or was there something deeper he was hiding? Amanda's mind raced as she walked through their penthouse one afternoon, noticing the usual coldness that had settled in every corner of the apartment. Michael had been unusually quiet after the gala, retreating into his work and leaving her alone in the space that now felt foreign to her. It was as if they were both just going through the motions, playing their parts in a story that neither of them truly understood. As the days passed, Amanda found herself spending more time away from the penthouse. She took walks in the city, often finding herself at the park near their building. It was there, by the lake, that she could think clearly. It was there that she could hear her own thoughts without the pressure of Michael's expectations or the suffocating weight of the contract that bound them together. One afternoon, while sitting on a bench by the water, Amanda was lost in her thoughts when she heard a familiar voice. "Amanda, right?" She turned to see Michael standing behind her, his hands in his pockets, looking every bit the powerful CEO that he was. He looked different today, though, less guarded, more relaxed. She hadn't expected to see him here, and the unexpectedness of it made her feel a bit nervous. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with surprise. Michael smiled faintly, the warmth of the day softening the usually sharp edges of his features. "I was just passing by," he said. "And I thought I'd check on you." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Check on me? Is that something you do?" She didn't mean to sound sarcastic, but she couldn't help it. She had spent so much time wondering what he thought of her, and now that he was here, it felt almost surreal. Michael's expression shifted slightly. "I know this isn't exactly what you imagined when we got married," he said, his voice softer than usual. "But I wanted you to know that I didn't bring you into this just to use you as a pawn." Amanda looked at him, unsure of what to say. She had heard words like this before, words that hinted at something more, but they always came with an unspoken condition. Was this any different? Was he trying to make amends, or was this just another attempt to control the narrative of their marriage? "I didn't want this either," Amanda said quietly. "But I didn't think I had a choice." Michael stepped closer, sitting down beside her on the bench. He looked out at the lake, the silence between them growing comfortable, almost peaceful. "I'm not asking you to love me, Amanda," he said. "I'm not asking for anything that's not in the agreement. But I don't want you to feel like you're just here to fulfill a role. I want you to know that I see you." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Amanda thought she saw a glimpse of sincerity in his eyes. Maybe this wasn't just about the power, the control, or the legacy after all. Maybe there was something else beneath it all. But before she could respond, Michael stood up, brushing off his pants. "I have to get back to work," he said, his voice returning to its usual cold tone. "But we can talk more about this later." Amanda watched him walk away, her heart feeling heavier than before. She wasn't sure if this conversation had meant anything at all, or if it was just another one of Michael's attempts to keep things under control. But as she sat there, watching him disappear into the distance, she realized that she wasn't the same person she had been when they first met. She wasn't just going to be a passive participant in this marriage anymore. She had her own desires, her own dreams, and if Michael was going to be a part of her life, she needed to figure out what she truly wanted. She couldn't keep living in his shadow, waiting for him to tell her what to do. No, Amanda needed to find her own path, whether that meant staying in this marriage or walking away. Only time would tell. The following weeks passed in a strange limbo. For Amanda, she wasn't sure where she stood with Michael anymore. Their conversations, once limited to business and obligatory pleasantries, began to shift. She noticed small things, like how his eyes would linger on her just a little longer than before, or the way he started asking about her day, not just as part of their arrangement, but with genuine curiosity. It confused her, made her question everything she thought she understood about him. Was he starting to care? Or was this just another tactic, another way to keep her in line, to remind her that she didn't have the luxury of escaping? Amanda had no answers, only a gnawing uncertainty that had become a constant companion. One evening, after a long day spent going through the endless sea of paperwork Michael kept in his office, Amanda found herself standing in front of a large mirror in their bedroom. She stared at her reflection, searching for some sign of the person she used to be, before this marriage, before Michael's world had swallowed her whole. She was no longer the carefree woman who once dreamed of art galleries and quiet mornings by the beach. Now, she was a woman caught in a gilded cage, pretending that everything was fine, pretending that the man who barely looked at her was the one she would spend the rest of her life with. She sighed, running a hand through her hair as she turned away from the mirror. Just as she was about to step out into the hallway, she heard a knock on the door. It was Michael, standing in the doorway, his usual sharp suit replaced with a simple shirt and jeans. His appearance seemed less polished, more human somehow, and for the first time, Amanda saw him not as the CEO, but as a man who was also struggling with something. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice more serious than usual. Amanda's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what to expect from this conversation, but she could feel that it was different. She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. They both sat on the edge of the bed, the silence between them thick with unspoken words. For a moment, neither of them said anything, the weight of the past few weeks hanging heavily in the air. "I know I haven't been the easiest to be around," Michael finally spoke, his eyes meeting hers. "But I need you to understand something." Amanda felt a twinge of surprise. She hadn't expected him to admit any kind of fault. He was always so controlled, so focused on maintaining an image. "I didn't bring you into this marriage just for business," he continued, his voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. "I need you to believe that." Amanda didn't know how to respond. The words he was saying were so different from everything she had come to expect from him. Could it be possible that this was more than just a transaction for him? Could it be that he was actually trying to open up, trying to connect with her? "I don't know what to believe anymore, Michael," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "One moment, you're distant, like I'm just another part of your empire. And then the next, you want me to be more than that. What am I supposed to think?" Michael looked away, as if struggling to find the right words. "I never meant for you to feel like you were just part of the deal," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I wanted you with me, not just as a business partner, but as someone I could trust. Someone who could be more than just a contract." The sincerity in his voice caught Amanda off guard. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to show any vulnerability, let alone admit that he might actually want something more from her. But even as she processed his words, a part of her couldn't shake the doubt. Hadn't he been the one to push her into this marriage for his own gain? Hadn't he made it clear that she was just a means to an end? And yet, here he was, telling her that he wanted her to be more than that. Why now? Amanda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why are you telling me this now? Michael seemed to wrestle with his emotions before answering. Because I can't keep pretending that everything is just business anymore. I know I've been cold, and I know I've kept you at a distance, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want you to feel like this is just some arrangement. I want you to know that I'm trying to be real with you. Amanda's heart was racing. She wasn't sure if she could believe him. She had spent so long convincing herself that this was all a game, a calculated move on his part. But now, with the raw honesty in his voice, she began to wonder if she had misjudged him all along. And what does that mean for us? She asked, her voice trembling. Michael reached out, taking her hand gently in his. It means that I want us to try, he said. Not just for the sake of the company or the contract, but because I think we can make this work. I want to make this work. For both of us. Amanda looked at their hands, her mind spinning. Could this really be happening? Could she trust him, after everything that had happened? She didn't know, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this wasn't just a marriage of convenience after all. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something real together. But she needed time. Time to process everything, time to figure out what she wanted. She couldn't rush into this, not again. I need time, Michael, she said softly. I need to figure out what this means for me, for us. Michael nodded, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. Take all the time you need, he said. I'm not going anywhere. The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time, Amanda felt like she wasn't just part of a deal. Maybe, just maybe, this could turn into something more. Days turned into weeks, and still, Amanda found herself caught in the whirlpool of uncertainty. Michael had kept his word, giving her space, allowing her the time she needed to figure out what she truly wanted. But the more time she spent away from him, the more conflicted she felt. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of something big, something that could change everything. But what? Was she truly ready to let go of the walls she had built around herself, or would she walk away from the only man who had ever seen her as more than just an asset? Every day, she fought with herself, torn between what she thought she wanted and what she was beginning to crave, real connection. Her morning walks in the park had become a routine. A way for her to escape, to breathe, and to try and clear her head. She had spent most of her life hiding behind her dreams of art, distant from the chaos of the corporate world, but now, she was part of it. And with each passing day, she was becoming more and more entangled in Michael's world. One afternoon, as she sat on the bench by the lake, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. I'm hosting a private dinner tonight at the penthouse. I'd like you to be there. I know it's been a while, but I think it's time we talk. Her heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, direct, but there was something in them that made her nervous. Could this be the conversation she had been avoiding? The one where Michael finally made her choose between staying or leaving. She thought about the past few weeks, the way they had avoided each other, how distant they had been. Maybe, just maybe, he was ready to face the truth. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to sit across from him, trying to figure out whether his words were genuine or if he was still playing his part. But she couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward him. The curiosity. The longing. It was a dangerous game, but she didn't know how much longer she could keep pretending it didn't matter. She arrived at the penthouse later that evening, feeling the familiar weight of the high-rise building's cold luxury press down on her. The moment she stepped inside, Michael was there, waiting by the door, his expression unreadable. You look stunning, he said, his voice softer than usual. She smiled faintly, her nerves creeping back. Thanks, she replied, but the words felt hollow, the distance between them growing with each passing second. Michael led her to the dining room, where a small, intimate dinner had been set up. The table was set for two, a stark contrast to the grand events they had attended together. It was just the two of them tonight, no distractions, no guests. As they sat down, Michael studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense. "We need to talk," he said, breaking the silence. "About us." Amanda felt her heart race. This was it. The conversation she had been avoiding, the moment where everything would change. "I've been thinking a lot," Michael continued, his voice calm, but there was a tension behind his words. "About what you said. About needing time. And I realized something important." Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She waited for him to continue, her mind racing with possibilities. "I know I've been cold, and I know I've kept you at arm's length," Michael said, his eyes locking onto hers. "But the truth is, I want more from this. More than just a contract. More than just business. I want a real relationship, Amanda." The words hit her like a wave. For so long, she had convinced herself that this was just a transaction, a means to an end, but now Michael was telling her he wanted more. Her emotions were a whirlwind, confusion, hope, fear. She didn't know how to respond. "Are you saying you want us to try?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Michael nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Yes," he said. "I want to try. I know it's complicated, and I know I've made mistakes, but I can't keep pretending that I don't care. I do, Amanda. I care more than I've allowed myself to admit." Amanda swallowed hard, her mind spinning. Was he being sincere? Or was this another part of his plan? She couldn't tell anymore. Everything she thought she knew was beginning to unravel. She had spent so long building walls, convincing herself that she didn't need him, that she was fine on her own. But now, with him sitting there, offering something she hadn't expected, she wasn't sure what to think. "And what about me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" Michael leaned forward, his gaze softening. "I want you to be honest with me. I want you to tell me what you need, what you want from this marriage. I don't want you to feel like you have to stay because of the contract, or because of some obligation. I want us to build something real, Amanda. No more games." Amanda felt a lump form in her throat. This wasn't the man she had married, and yet, maybe, this was the man she had been hoping for all along. The one who would let down his guard, the one who would stop pretending that everything was just about business. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a choice. The future was still uncertain, but the possibility of something more, something real, was now within her grasp. She didn't know what to say, but she knew one thing: this was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter she had the power to write, one way or another. The days after that conversation were a blur for Amanda, everything seemed to shift overnight. Michael had finally admitted that he wanted something more, something real, and for the first time since their marriage began, Amanda allowed herself to believe it. She woke up each morning with a sense of possibility, something that had been missing for so long. It wasn't just about the luxury of the penthouse or the wealth that surrounded her, it was about the small moments they shared now, the quiet dinners, the walks they took together after work, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The walls between them were slowly coming down, but Amanda couldn't help but wonder, was this real? Could they truly build something together, or was Michael still just playing the same game? She needed time to figure it out, time to adjust to this new dynamic that had emerged between them. One evening, after another day of meetings and business calls, Michael asked her to join him for dinner at a quiet restaurant across town. It wasn't one of their usual high-end venues, but a small, intimate spot where they could sit and talk without the distractions of the corporate world. Amanda agreed, though her stomach fluttered with nervous anticipation. As she entered the restaurant, she saw Michael waiting at a table near the window. His gaze met hers immediately, and for a moment, it felt like no one else existed in the room. He stood up as she approached, offering a warm smile. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, his voice softer than usual. She sat down across from him, still unsure of what to say, but feeling the weight of his presence more than ever. "So, how was your day?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes studying her carefully. Amanda hesitated for a moment, not sure if she should be open or hold back. "It was all right," she said, her voice steady. "Just the usual." "How about you?" Michael chuckled softly. "You know how it is, meetings, phone calls, making deals. But I've been thinking about what you said the other night." Amanda looked up, meeting his gaze. "About needing time?" she asked. "Yes," Michael replied, leaning forward slightly. "And about what you want from all of this." "I've been thinking a lot about that too." His words were calm, but Amanda could hear the sincerity in his voice. She hadn't expected him to bring it up again so soon, but there it was, the elephant in the room. "I don't know what I want yet, Michael," she said quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of her wine glass. "I don't know if I can just turn off everything I've been feeling for the past few months. I've been so focused on surviving, on just getting through each day, that I forgot what it feels like to just live." Michael's expression softened, his eyes never leaving hers. "I understand," he said. "And I'm not asking you to forget everything that's happened. I'm just asking for a chance, for both of us to see if this can work. I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise that I won't give up." Amanda felt a strange warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had spent so much time pushing him away, assuming that he was just another man playing a game, but now, in this moment, she wasn't so sure. Maybe there was something more to this than just the contract they had signed. Maybe this wasn't just about business anymore. Maybe, for the first time, it was about trust, about two people trying to make something work in the messiness of life. "I'm willing to try," Amanda said, her voice steady. "But it's going to take time. I need to trust you, and that's not something I can do overnight." Michael nodded, a look of understanding crossing his face. "I know," he said softly. "And I'll wait. I'm not going anywhere." The rest of the evening passed in a blur, filled with easy conversation and moments of laughter that felt more natural than anything Amanda had felt in a long time. When they left the restaurant, Michael walked her back to the penthouse, and for the first time since their marriage began, Amanda felt a sense of peace settle over her. This wasn't the perfect love story, not by any means. But it was real. And maybe that was enough for now. As they stood outside the building, Michael turned to her, his hand brushing against hers. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving us a chance." Amanda smiled, her heart a little lighter than it had been in days. "We're just getting started," she replied, her voice filled with a new sense of hope. "But I'm willing to see where this goes." As Michael left, Amanda watched him disappear into the night, her thoughts swirling with possibilities. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of small victories and lingering doubts for Amanda. She and Michael were beginning to build something, slowly but surely, but there were still moments when the walls she had put up to protect herself from him seemed to rise again. Michael, for his part, seemed more patient than ever. He didn't rush her, didn't demand anything from her that she wasn't willing to give, and for the first time, Amanda felt like she was not just part of his plan, but an equal partner in whatever this was becoming. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy, but it was real. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Michael asked Amanda to join him for a quiet dinner at the penthouse. She had gotten used to these small moments of intimacy with him, but tonight felt different. There was a quiet intensity in the air, as if both of them knew that the time had come to address the unspoken questions that had been hanging over their heads. As Amanda entered the penthouse, she could see Michael standing by the window, his back turned, gazing out over the city lights. The way he carried himself, so commanding, so sure of himself, it reminded her of the man she had married. But there was something softer in his posture now, something more vulnerable that she hadn't seen before. "You wanted to talk?" she asked, her voice breaking the silence. Michael turned to face her, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Yes," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. I think it's time we talk about where we go from here. Amanda felt a flutter in her chest at his words. She had known this conversation was coming. They couldn't keep living in limbo, pretending that everything was fine when there were still so many unanswered questions between them. I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night, Michael continued, his eyes locked on hers. And I've realized that I'm not the same person I was when we first met. This isn't just about the company anymore. It's about us. His words were heavy, filled with a sincerity that caught Amanda off guard. She had expected him to be distant, to keep their relationship confined to the boundaries of their agreement, but now, in this moment, it felt like everything was changing. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I'm saying that I want more than just this arrangement," he said. "I want a real relationship with you. I don't want us to keep pretending that this is just business. I want to be with you, Amanda. Not just as a business partner, but as a partner in every sense of the word." Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to lay his heart out like this, to be so open, so vulnerable. She had spent so long building up walls, convincing herself that she didn't need him, that she didn't want anything more than the life they had created together. But now, as she stood there, looking into his eyes, she realized how much she had been lying to herself. She had wanted this all along. She had wanted to be seen by him, to be more than just a pawn in his game. She had wanted to feel like she mattered. "I don't know what to say," Amanda said, her voice trembling. "This is all so new. I'm not sure I'm ready to give everything up." Michael reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I'm not asking you to give everything up," he said softly. "I'm asking you to take a chance on us. We don't have to have it all figured out right now. But I want to try. Together." Amanda looked down at their hands, the warmth of his touch sending a shiver through her. She had been afraid for so long, afraid to let herself believe in something real, something that could hurt her. But now, in this moment, she felt something stir inside her. Maybe it was time to stop running, to stop pretending that she didn't want more. "I don't want to be scared anymore," Amanda said, her voice steadying. "I don't want to live in fear of what might happen if I let go." Michael's smile grew wider, his eyes sparkling with something she couldn't quite place. "Then don't be scared," he said softly. "We'll figure this out together. One step at a time." As Amanda nodded, feeling the weight of his words sink in, she knew that this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. There would still be challenges, still be moments of doubt, but she wasn't alone in this anymore. She had Michael, and maybe that was all she needed to start believing in something real. As they stood together in the quiet of the penthouse, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Amanda finally felt like she was ready to take the next step. With Michael by her side, she didn't have to be afraid anymore. They had something worth fighting for, and that was enough to start a new chapter. As the days passed, Amanda found herself slowly letting go of the walls she had built around her. Michael's words, his actions, and the way he had been showing up for her, really showing up, made her start to believe that maybe this could work, that maybe they could build something real. But as much as she was opening up to the possibility of love, there was still a lingering fear in her heart, a fear that she couldn't ignore. What if she was only seeing what she wanted to see? What if, despite all the changes, Michael was still the same man who had entered this marriage with nothing but business on his mind? She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that she had to find out. So, one night, as they sat together in the quiet of their penthouse, Amanda finally spoke what had been weighing on her mind. "Michael," she started, her voice soft but firm, "I need to ask you something." He looked up from the paperwork he had been going through, his eyes meeting hers. "Anything," he said, setting the papers aside. Amanda took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "When we first got married," she began, "you said it was a business arrangement, that this was all about securing your legacy, your empire. And I agreed, because at that time, that was all I could see too. But now things feel different." "You feel different?" Michael's expression softened, and he leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "I've been thinking about that too," he said quietly. "When I first proposed this marriage, it was for the sake of the company, for my family's future. But then something changed. I realized that this wasn't just a business deal anymore. I wasn't just trying to secure my legacy, I was trying to secure something real, something I hadn't allowed myself to have before." Amanda's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment where everything would come to light. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael stood up and walked over to her, standing by her side, but not too close, just enough to show he wasn't rushing her, wasn't trying to control her. "I'm saying that I want you to know that I've changed. I know that I didn't give you the time or space to see who I really am, but I'm here now. And I want you, Amanda. Not just for the company, not just for the deal. I want to build a life with you. I've realized that I can't do this alone anymore." His words hit Amanda like a tidal wave. She had wanted this, wanted him to say something like this, but hearing it out loud made everything feel so much more real. He wasn't just offering her the security of a business partnership, he was offering her his heart. "I need you to trust me," Michael continued, his voice low and sincere. "I need you to believe that I'm not just playing some game. This is real for me." Amanda felt a tear slip down her cheek, one she hadn't been expecting. She had spent so long questioning his motives, questioning whether he truly cared for her, but now, in this moment, she realized that maybe she had been questioning the wrong things all along. She had been so afraid of getting hurt, of giving too much of herself, but Michael wasn't asking for her to give everything. He was just asking for a chance. "I want to believe you," Amanda whispered. "But I need to know that this isn't just about control, about getting your way. I need to know that you see me, really see me." Michael's hand gently cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tear. "I see you, Amanda. I see everything about you. I see the woman who is strong and independent, who has dreams beyond this world we're in, and I want to be a part of that world with you. I want to help you reach those dreams." Amanda's heart swelled in her chest. This was the man she had been waiting for, the man who had finally opened his heart to her. She had spent so long waiting for him to see her as more than just a wife, more than just a tool in his business plan, and now, she felt like he truly saw her. "I'm scared," Amanda admitted, her voice trembling. "I'm scared that I'll give too much, and I'll lose myself again. But I want to try. I want to give this a chance." Michael smiled softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said gently. "I'm not going anywhere, Amanda. I'm in this for the long haul, and I promise you won't have to do it alone." The weight of his words settled over her, and for the first time in a long time, Amanda felt the fear begin to melt away. She wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, this marriage that had started as a contract, as a deal, could turn into something more than she had ever dreamed. A real partnership, built on trust and love, not just business. As she looked at Michael, she knew that there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time, she was ready to face them with him. Together. Months passed, and what had begun as a marriage of convenience was slowly transforming into something neither Michael nor Amanda had anticipated. They had taken their time, letting their relationship grow and evolve in its own way, step by step. The tension that had once existed between them was no longer there. They were no longer two strangers in a contract, they were partners in every sense of the word. Michael had shown Amanda a side of himself she never expected to see, vulnerable, honest, and willing to put in the work to make this marriage something real. And Amanda, in return, had learned to trust him in a way she hadn't trusted anyone in years. One evening, as they sat together on the terrace of their penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below them, Amanda realized just how far they had come. She had been afraid of losing herself in this marriage, of becoming someone she wasn't, but now she knew she had gained something she had never expected, someone who saw her, who valued her, and who was willing to build a future together. "I never thought we'd get here," Amanda said, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "I never thought I could feel this way, not after everything. Michael turned to her, his eyes soft, his hand reaching for hers. "I didn't think we'd get here either," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "But I'm glad we did. And I'm glad it's with you." Amanda smiled, her heart swelling with a warmth she hadn't known was possible. She had spent so much time protecting herself, building walls around her heart, but Michael had slowly chipped away at them, piece by piece, until she realized that love wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. As the evening wore on, they talked about their future, about the dreams they had yet to fulfill, and about the family they wanted to build. The uncertainty that had once hovered over them was gone, replaced by the quiet certainty that they were stronger together than they had ever been apart. Later that week, Michael invited Amanda to a small, intimate dinner at the same restaurant where they had first shared their true feelings for each other. This time, there was no tension, no fear. There was only the comfort of knowing that they were building something real. As they sat down at the table, Michael reached across and took her hand in his thumb gently stroking her fingers. "You know," he said with a smile, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. And there's something I want to ask you." Amanda's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to bring up something so serious. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. Michael smiled, his eyes shining with something she couldn't quite place. "I know we've been through a lot to get to this point, but I want to know if you're ready to take the next step with me. Not just as a business partner, but as my partner in every sense. Will you marry me, Amanda?" Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She had known this moment would come, but it still took her by surprise. She had never thought that love could grow out of a contract, that something as cold and calculated as a business arrangement could transform into the kind of love that could last a lifetime. But here she was, standing at the edge of that possibility, with the man she had come to love, the man who had shown her that real love was built on trust, respect, and shared dreams. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Michael. I want to be with you, forever." Michael's smile grew wider, and in that moment, Amanda knew that they had truly come full circle. What had started as a business deal, a marriage built on convenience, had blossomed into a love that neither of them could have predicted. As they stood up from the table, Michael took her in his arms, holding her close as if he never wanted to let her go. And for the first time since their marriage began, Amanda felt like she had found something worth fighting for. Together, they had created a life that was real, full of possibilities, and full of love. The future was uncertain, yes, but now they had each other. And that was enough. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, Amanda knew that this was just the beginning. Their story was far from over, but it had already become something beautiful, something that neither of them could have ever imagined when they first met. In the end, it wasn't the wealth, the empire, or the business deals that mattered. It was the love they had built, the trust they had earned, and the future they were about to create together. And that, Amanda realized, was worth everything.